Hello and welcome to Lakewood Next Daily Devotions. Up to this point, we've been going through the Sermon on the Mount. We just finished a week on the Lord's Prayer, and now we get to Matthew chapter 6, starting in verse 16, where Jesus talks about fasting. He says, "When you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you." In the first century, fasting was observed by the entire Jewish community during special feasts and major festivals like the Feast of Atonement. But it was also done pretty widely individually and voluntarily, and that was really approved as a mark of spiritual devotions. Pharisees were known for fasting 2 days a week just to show their piety to everyone. And Jesus didn't actually have a problem with fasting. In fact, you'll see him encourage his disciples to fast when he says, "When you fast, do it this way." I mean, he didn't discourage the practice of fasting, but he did have a problem with the Pharisees because they would walk around in dirty clothes. They wouldn't wash their face. They'd have gaunt faces because essentially they were putting on a show of devotion. They wanted their religious devotion to be on display for public approval, which is kind of ironic when you consider that the whole idea behind fasting is to give up something lesser so that you can gain something greater. Namely, they would give up food so that they could focus and grow closer to God. But the Pharisees, they weren't doing that. Essentially, the Pharisees were just giving up a lesser thing, food, to gain an even lesser thing, public adoration. They had taken public approval and raised it to a higher level and priority than genuine devotion and relationship with God. Now, the Pharisees never would have said this is what they were doing, but their hearts screamed it. And every time Jesus really challenged the Pharisees, he was challenging not their actions, but their hearts. Why they did the things they were doing. And that tells us that there is a difference, a notable difference between displayed devotion and genuine devotion. See, devotion that is for display speaks into a moment, and it has a pretty immediate reward. People think highly of you. They see you go to church. They see you do all the right things, and they think pretty highly of you, and that's great. But when our motivation is that approval, we've kind of missed the point of the action. Genuine devotion is something that's really seen by no one other than God. But it speaks into the eternal with a lasting treasure that outweighs the total sum of earthly accolades. In the next sections we're going to be going through this week, Jesus specifically focuses on what we're going to call the greater righteousness. The idea of it's a righteousness that takes root and has root in your heart. So if I can encourage you as we kind of just start this week off, take time today to pray and ask God to lead you on paths of greater righteousness for His name's sake. This righteousness that is transformative, that speaks well beyond us, that doesn't necessarily give us the momentary approval, but instead gives us the eternal approval of God. You may be surprised then, as you go through this and as you think about these things, what God then does next. I hope you're blessed this week. And if you're daring, I encourage you, take a day, fast, make sure you wash your face. Fast. Go through it, experience giving up something lesser to gain something greater. That is a principle in this that is valuable for us. But the understanding is this, that when we do these things, it is not to gain approval of those around us. Instead, it is so that we can grow closer in relationship to God and experience true devotion. Have a blessed week.